This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
I want to welcome you to a very special edition of the Real Talk Roundtable as we come to you from our downtown studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse, bringing together creative people. This episode is going to have a bit of a different feel. If you're looking for angst and anger, if you're looking for us to torque things up, we're not going to. Our guests might, but really, our mandate today is to celebrate the best in nonfiction filmmaking. And in just a second, you're going to meet the festival director behind NorthwestFest. We've been talking about that this week. You're going to meet directors and producers behind some of the crown jewels, the films that are going to be screened at this festival starting on May 9th. You're going to learn a little bit more about what makes them tick, why they latched on to the stories they did. We're going to hear from the director of the Cigarette Surfboard. That's the one we've been talking about. Send Kelp. We're going to find out more about how much do you know about kelp? And we're going to learn a bit about endometriosis, plus the art of filmmaking. How is film made in Canada? What's the medium like? What's drawing people to physical movie theaters? Again, is there a post-pandemic angle on programming film festivals? We're going to keep our coffees topped up. We're going to hang out, and we're grateful that you're here with us as we set the table for NorthwestFest. Now, this episode is happening with the support of Alberta's top real estate school at relo.ca. That's RELO.ca. And they're putting the call out to every single one of you that is absolutely sick and tired of the cubicle life. You're sick and tired of having your income capped. You're sick and tired of working at a job that's providing no fulfillment. You're looking at all your friends working in real estate and you're asking, why not me? Relo is your best bet to get ready to write your exam, to learn a little bit more about the industry itself, and of course to have the supports there, real life humans who are available to talk to you, to counsel you through the first steps of your brand new career. And because you're hearing about this or seeing this on Real Talk, there's a great incentive for you, an exclusive special discount code. That's Ryan100. When you go to relo.ca, the code Ryan100 will knock $100 off both the Alberta Residential Real Estate Bundle and the Alberta Commercial Real Estate Bundle when you get started at relo.ca. Well, what a pleasure to welcome an old friend of mine and a couple of new friends to the studio. We're going to be joined by a filmmaker out of California in the second half of this episode, but it's my pleasure to welcome the festival director, the festival programmer from NorthwestFest, Guy Lavallee, to Real Talk. It's nice to see your face, buddy.
Nice to see you, Ryan,
Yeah.
or as I have called you for many years, Ryan100.
Ryan100, $100 off. Anywhere you go, Guy, you can drop that promo code around the city and see if it works. You've brought Blake McWilliam with you. Blake, an award-winning Canadian director and producer. We'll get into the work that you've done, Blake. You're here to talk about your new film, Send Kelp, and it's awesome to have Katrina Beatty joining us as well. Katrina, the producer of The Wounds Within. Good morning to you both, and thanks for coming to Real Talk.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you get, I know you get super, like NorthwestFest is like this torch that you carry all year long. So,
Yes.
so I know that as we welcomed you into studio today, and I asked, I said, what's your official title? You said, well, I'm festival director, and I am
Programmer and
walking nervous breakdown.
Walking nervous breakdown.
Walking
Yes,
nervous
thank you.
breakdown.
Yeah.
So these are the few days before the festival, but I know that you say this facetiously because I've checked out the website and I know that everything's ready to rock, ready to go. For people that aren't familiar with NorthwestFest, it's got kind of a unique sweet spot as a non-fiction film festival.
Yeah, the festival started actually many, many years ago here in Edmonton. As I love telling this story because the original name of this festival, when it started in 1983, was the Third World Film Festival. So they were lining up around the block for that.
Yes.
It rebranded in 98 as Global Visions. So it's and then we rebranded it again in 2015, partly because the tenor of our programming was changing so much. The festival's always focused on documentaries, but they never really kind of pumped that whole idea of being an exclusive documentary film festival. And then when I first joined in, 2011, on a 3-month contract just to help out and do a favor.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks. that's when I found out it was actually Canada's longest running documentary film festival. So we kind of relaunched, rebranded, and we were seeing a lot of really great momentum and a lot of potential. And it kind of led us to like also starting the Rainbow Visions Film Festival and then our new genre festival, Northwest Fear Fest, which we do in the fall.
So cool. I love all the spin-offs and the history and the fact that like there's obviously going to be people that'll attend this festival for the first time. They're going to hear about these films today. They're going to go check it out for the first time. But you must have some OGs that have been there ever since 1983. They haven't missed a day type thing.
We do. You know, it's really interesting because I think a lot of the larger, destination festivals, they have like a huge core of people from within their own city and that travel from other cities.
Are you talking like Cannes and TIFF?
Yeah,
and all that
exactly.
Kind of
like the really massive festivals. When you're a regional festival like this one, you really have to rely on your local community. And so we have a kind of a core group of people who have been coming for years. Like every year, the second we put passes on sale, they buy their passes. They're there. They're in the same seat. I'm not even kidding. We had one patron who somebody sat in her seat by accident.
Oh, and there's an issue.
That did not end well, let me tell you.
How did it end? Did you give the OG dibs, or did the person that rightfully had claimed that seat get to keep the seat?
They moved.
Good for them.
On their own. Good
for them.
Like we're going to name name tags, I think, or like selling like golden seats.
Well, that's what we should do, actually.
Reserved seats.
Yeah, exactly. That's
as sort of a special fundraiser. Speaking of TIFF, the Toronto, you were at TIFF this year, weren't you, Blake?
Yeah, I was.
We're talking about a different film, but this was Hey Victor, an Indigenous comedy that you worked on.
Yeah, that was amazing, and that's going to be releasing on Crave pretty soon. But that's seen an incredible run. It's been in theaters across Canada, and it's still enjoying a lot of success in those places. But it premiered at Tribeca in the States, and then at TIFF, which was an incredible experience. And here we go. It's kind of off to the races.
Yeah. So this we're going to be talking about, and I want to roll the trailer for Send Kelp in just a second because I absolutely love it. But this is your feature documentary directorial debut. This is kind of a big deal for you.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I've been producing for many, many years, and this has been a really incredible year. It's been three different films have been playing in theaters across Canada. I don't know that there's many producers that can say that they've had that happen this year.
Especially in this country.
In this country, in this environment as well. It's a difficult time for theaters. So 2 of those films were narrative films, and a third, which actually premiered in Edmonton at NorthwestFest, is The Lebanese Burger Mafia, as a documentary.
Congratulations on the huge success of that. We've had
you.
Omar McWilliam on the show talking about it.
Yeah, and it's incredible. Omar's just so over the moon right now. We just learned that that's been nominated for a James Beard Award, which is like the Oscars of food, in a way. So that film's just seeing more and more success, which is incredible. And so that's been an amazing experience. But what's special about this particular film is that it's the first film that I've directed as a documentarian. So I'm really excited to get it to audiences.
You're talking about Send Kelp.
I am, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go there. So this is Blake McWilliam. We'll dig into the film in just a bit, but here's an introduction to Send Kelp.
I couldn't have known that one day I'd be farming seaweed. But the more I learn about it, the more I've come to realize how incredible it really is.
So if we reestablish that balance between land and ocean, it could be very significant to the world.
And it could be the key to saving our coasts.
So why don't you tell me what you want to do?
I want to start a kelp farm.
We had to come up with things that people actually need or want.
This was our first product, and it's really good.
I don't know what I'm going to tell Mom.
We're not going to tell Mom till we're done.
Yeah, good plan, good plan.
But I need to move fast. The young kelp must be planted by mid-December.
If we don't find it now, we have officially run out of road.
This farm might not just be an effort to save the place I love. It may, in fact, be an effort to save myself. I feel this profound sadness for what we've lost.
There's an area that's just been completely wiped out for kelp forest.
And the environmental changes yet to come.
This is quite possibly the worst timing ever.
But the thing about grief is that it can inspire action.
About 6 or 7 hours before sunset. That's lots. We hope.
this is what it will take to make change.
How far can I lean out before I fall out? We shall see. We shall see.
Send Kelp screening at the NorthwestFest. That festival kicks off May 9th. Blake, how did I always love hearing how a film came together, how a story idea. How did Kelp get on your radar?
I mean, I would have never thought. I'm from the prairies. I just happened to be living on the West Coast at the time, and Frances was reading she's a kelp nerd, and she's reading a book about kelp and about farming kelp, and she's trying to decide what she wants to do with her life. She's, just struggling with what her next steps are. And I look at her and I say, well, what if we made a documentary about you starting a kelp farm? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
I love that you're like, I'm gonna have my my directorial debut. So let's go underwater.
Yes,
you insane man. You.
Yeah, and so there's all sorts of challenges with filming something that takes place like 70% of the film underwater, but go big and go home. I mean, it's not the first thing I've ever made. It's not like I haven't been making stuff for 10, 15 years. So it's not like I was biting off more than I could chew. I didn't feel like, but it is the first film that I've ever made. So it's certainly a risk. Yeah.
And I've watched your trailer and I mean, I did a bit of reading, so I didn't sound like an absolute idiot. But people would probably, the average person, myself included, would underestimate the power or the perceived or future, the potential of kelp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about as a prairie kid, but it sounds to me like there's applications potentially on dairy and beef farms. I mean, all kinds of applications.
It's incredible. I mean, there's sort of two paths that you could talk about kelp and its miraculousness. One is sort of its natural role in oceans. If you think about like the Amazon rainforest and what that does for the ecosystem, there are kelp forests that are far bigger than the Amazon rainforest that are providing the same kind of ecological sort of keystone underwater, and in fact sequester more carbon than terrestrial forests. So kelp is like this fascinating thing from an ecological standpoint, but then when you start thinking about it from how can humans use this, all these applications were only brushing the surface of what's possible. There's all sorts of incredible studies. Like there's a study out of UC Davis that showed that they fed a certain type of kelp to cows, and it reduced the methane emissions from cows by up to 90%. 90%. That's right. So, the film explores all of that. We sort of use the story of Frances starting a kelp farm as our backbone, and we sort of zoom out and learn about all of these different incredible things that it can do.
It's amazing. And aside from food, I mean, potential in bioplastics, cosmetics, agriculture, fertilizer, like you said, carbon sequestration, ocean resilience.
All of these things, it's incredible. And so the industry of harvesting kelp, growing kelp is incredible because it's sort of a set it and forget it sort of organism. You plant the crop, and it doesn't need any inputs. It doesn't need fertilizers. It just sort of grows, and so you collect that. And now the second industry is, what do we do with this stuff? And there's incredible research going on in terms of what are those things? Can we turn it into plastics? Can we use it for fertilizer? What can we use it for?
We heard the trailer there.
Yeah.
The score. Like the music here has an amazing story behind it.
Yeah, there's a couple of incredible sort of Edmonton connections, and the score is one of them. Our good friend Jonathan, who's a film composer, but also this incredible musical artist himself, and he does these incredible things like going into the backcountry with like 90 microphones and recording strange sounds of like alpine lakes cracking with a hydrofoam and stuff, right? And then he makes an album created with all of this stuff that he's recorded, and he does these cool listening parties at IMAX with like 360 sound and stuff. Is really cool. But I was talking to him as like, how he can compose a score, an orchestral score, but how can we sort of go deeper? And so we came up with this idea, and him and I went snorkeling off the coast of Vancouver Island, and we collected bull kelp, which kind of looks like it's called bull kelp because it looks like a bullwhip, but it gets really, really big. It's like 20-30 feet long and like 6 to 8 inches thick. And we collected a whole bunch of this stuff, and we brought it into a recording studio in Victoria, and we found this sort of like legendary trumpet player that lives in Victoria, and we got him in, and he fashioned all of basically any instrument we could think of that you could make out of this stuff. we made. So it's like French horns and flutes and recorders and like how can we make a sound out of this thing? And he did. And we sat there for like 2 days and recorded every possible note we could make out of the kelp. And then Jonathan infused that into the score. So we actually made our music out of kelp as well.
That's absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
It's really cool.
Is that the type of thing that's got to be a team effort type thing? Like somebody's like 3 a.m. and you guys have had a few drinks and someone says, what we should do?
That's what we should do.
Make instruments out of
and
kelp.
how do we do it? Yeah, I mean, it's like I think every film that's made, and Guy and Katrina can speak to this. It's like everybody can have ideas. You can have visions, and you can sort of push it towards those directions. But without people like that collaborating with you on your films, you don't end up with a film. It's not a single person making a thing. So we're here talking about our films and what we do, but it's like it's so much bigger than that.
Even Coppola says that. Coppola says the best thing he does is
who's that?
Francis Ford Coppola.
It's Nicolas Cage now.
But no, that's what he says he does. He surrounds himself with people that are, better than him at what they do, and then you get the benefit of all their experience and their knowledge too, and it makes you look better.
Yeah, is that well? So Katrina, you're a producer, right? And I think a lot of like the average like casual cinema fan or film fan might not totally understand what a producer does, but your job, as I understand it, is to put the best possible people on the film and to make sure that you have enough funding and enough resources to keep everybody there. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, that is a good summation. There's so many types of producers, and it's one of those complicated things where you can throw out an associate producer credit because someone loaned you their car for 2 months, or you can be the person in the trenches every day, doing script feedback and consulting on all the creative elements, as well as kind of figuring out those financing pieces and helping drive a project forward. So there's sort of a creative producer side of it, as well as kind of that in the trenches every day kind of element. And then there's the executive producers are like the money people. Usually they contribute a bunch of money resources, a bunch of different types. I don't want to get too crazy on you.
No, but this is cool for like civilians like us to come to a better understanding of what it all means in the credits, And when you see like executive producer Brody Jenner and you go, how do you get on there? I don't know, Brody
but
Jenner.
it is the producer who accepts the Best Picture award at the Oscars.
Yes.
But that is very much a North American thing.
Producer over director.
Yeah. Yes. It's a North American thing. I think it's partly because we, especially Hollywood, has turned filmmaking from an art into an industry. And that's not to say there isn't a lot of crossover. There still is. But the producer owns the IP, the intellectual property of a film. In Canada, we typically follow the same model. In France, final cut is the law that it gets left with the director. And even just when I've worked with companies from Europe, the way they do their call sheets is differently. The way they do their call sheet, which is the document that tells us who, where, when, everything.
Yeah, you're on set at 4:45.
Yeah, they format them differently because they prioritize different people in a different order, and for them it's always creative first. So it does depend a little on where you are.
That does seem like how the French would approach it. That seems appropriate.
Yeah, which I think is
creatives
lovely.
At the top. I think it's the way it should be.
Well, it is too, because if you look at the Oscars, you've got this star-studded show. You're building to this crescendo. You get your best actor, you get your best actress, you get best director, and no offense to producers of the world, because I'm one as well, but more often than not, when that best picture is announced, the producer comes up and the whole cast and everyone, and they're probably the worst speaker of the bunch. And it's like, this is what you're ending your show with. The person, we want to thank the financiers that really came on board early on in the project.
Yeah, but they're the ones that are making sure that everybody gets their millions of dollars.
Yes, exactly.
And the reason is because the producer, in a more traditional sense, they were a part of the project before there was a director.
Exactly.
Probably
since
even
inception.
Before there was even a writer, and they're the person who found the writer and found the director and brought the actors, and they're there for years afterwards, dealing with all of the things after the director's onto another project and whatever. The producer's the person who's continuing it. It's really their baby, and it's not to say that there isn't massive contribution from the director or from anybody else on the crew, but I think that's why.
Okay, I want to fit in a break, but when we come back, we got to get to your film. I don't know anything about endometriosis.
I'll try not to bring down the tone too much.
No,
Everybody's
it's okay.
really happy.
No,
here
this
today.
show we laugh about hilarious stuff, and then we talk about the most gut punch horrible stuff of all time, and then we go right back in. So this audience is up for it. We're up for it. When we come back, that's Katrina Beatty, a producer on The Wounds Within. We're also hanging out with Blake McWilliam, the director of Send Kelp. Guy Lavallee with us in studio, festival director. You may know him from his past celebrity as the movie Guy, back when Guy and I used to work together at City TV. So you've been a film reviewer and a champion of Canadian film and nonfiction film for many, many years, Guy. And then we will be looping in Ben Judkins as well, who will join us from California coming up in about 10 minutes to talk about the Cigarette Surfboard. This episode of Real Talk is happening with the support of our friends at Athabasca University. That's Canada's open university, and it's a perfect fit for those of you that are keen on broadening your horizons, learning a little bit more about the world in front of you, maybe better preparing yourself for a dynamic job market. But there's been barriers in the way of your post-secondary journey. Maybe you live out of town. You're not close to a university or a college. Maybe you're caring for your kids or your parents. Maybe you have a full-time job that keeps you busy all week long. You can select your customized path. That's the AU advantage when you visit their website. The only commute is to your device. You set the pace of your studies. It's why tens of thousands of Canadians choose AU. They're driven by a strong commitment to empower learners worldwide. You can learn more by visiting athabascau.ca. Hey, do you have your plan for Mother's Day yet? Have you figured it out? Well, if you're in the province of Alberta, Friesen Brothers has you covered with their Mother's Day charcuterie box. You can check it out on their website or just go directly to cateringbyfriesen.com. That's where you can learn more about the best ways to show Mom how much you appreciate everything she does for the family. They're just $90. You can pick them up at each of the Friesen Brothers 17 locations. They're customized so you can make sure Mom gets exactly what she wants. The best in Alberta meats, Alberta cheeses, and all the accoutrements. It's the Mother's Day charcuterie box at cateringbyfriesen.com. You look impressed at my pronunciation of accoutrement.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah. You go online, you find the pronouncers, and they tell you this is how you say accoutrement, so you can sound smart. Speaking of accoutrement, can I fit that into a custom closet read? We like to prove to people that these are live reads, and so this is in action. Our friends at California Closets, everybody knows, nobody does custom closets and storage solutions better than they do. And it's a risk-free dip of your toes in the pool. You reach out at californiaclosets.ca. You start a conversation with their designers. There's no charge for that. You talk to them about the area of the home you'd like to improve. You give them some dimensions, and then they'll cook up a plan like they did for us that'll blow your mind and stick on your budget. Whether it's an entryway, a mudroom, a second bedroom, you're looking for a Murphy bed maybe so it can double as a home office. Heck, wait till you see what they can do for your garage. It all starts with a visit to californiaclosets.ca. You are a fan of organization?
Garage is a disaster.
Who has to be more organized on it? Is it the producer? Is it the director?
Oh yeah, producer.
Producer.
Yeah.
So you are.
There's a freedom for that creative chaos. You know, when you're in the director shoes, you can get away with it. But no, as a producer, there's a lot of ducks in a row. You got you're responsible fiscally for the company. You're responsible for the budget.
Oh, that gives me anxiety.
You gotta have your shit together.
That gives me anxiety in a big way.
Well, ad reads give me anxiety, and you crush those.
I know,
it's
right?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm writing down every promo code. I'm like, I've got my consultation.
Yeah, I want you. Every episode of Real Talk, I want to save you a couple grand. Every episode, no problem.
I'm not gonna lie. When we first started, I was like, "Holy crap!" The Ryan switch turned on, and it was like, "We're going.
We are going. Buckle up." All right. Well, before we get into your film, why don't we learn a little bit more about what it's all about? This is going to be screening at NorthwestFest. Again, we want to keep directing you back to their website, northwestfest.ca. It'll be in the show notes on YouTube, on the podcast. But here's a look at The Wounds Within.
We were together in 2001, and we bought a house in 2010. We got married in 2014, and then I think the plan was to have kids. That's what I assumed, and there was some convincing my wife that, hey, we'd be good parents, because she wasn't sure.
I think I was scared of having to go back down that pain wormhole. I worked on all the psychological barriers and fears that I had, so that I was like, actually in, wanting to do this with my husband and with my partner. And so from there, becoming hopeful. It's almost like I broke the seal on something that in the hardest moments, I was like, oh, damn it. I wish I hadn't broke the seal on this hope, because I'm going to try everything in my being to make this work. And I don't think I realized what it would cost on a heart level.
How did this get on your radar?
Okay. Well, Laura Bravold, the subject and director of the film, was a friend, but at the time more of a friend of a friend. And she comes from a theater background. And she actually approached me right after I had finished a massive project. And we were talking earlier about how, like, when there's not enough money on a show, the producer just has more to do because there aren't fewer jobs. It's like you just have to take on more. So this was one where I had a lot of jobs to try to get this thing done. And in the course of it, actually, I was not planning to tell this story, but here we go. In the course of it, I had started leaking cerebral spinal fluid out my nose. And as a result of that, I eventually diagnosed myself, but I couldn't get a doctor to believe that was what was happening. And so I had sort of had to advocate for myself through the medical system. And it wasn't my first time having to do that. But it got to the point where when I finally got a doctor to believe that what I said was happening, I actually cheered in his office. I was just so relieved that someone finally believed me. That I was thrilled, which, I mean, I shouldn't have been thrilled, because what that means is there's a hole to your brain and you can get meningitis really easily. And you have to technically have brain surgery where they go up in there and patch the hole. So it wasn't really a fun time. But what had happened is Laura hit me up at this time where I had just gone through this, and she had spent 25 years trying to get a diagnosis on this endometriosis.
25 years.
25 years. So endometriosis affects 1 in 10 women, girls, gender diverse individuals. So basically 1 in 10 people with a uterus in Canada. That's only what we know about. We think it's very, very underreported because women's pain is normalized so often. And it still takes the average woman 6 to 10 years to get a diagnosis in Canada. Wow. So this is 10% of our female population out there are affected by this. More than likely more than that. Most people still don't even know what it is. So when she kind of brought this project to me, and I was supposed to actually be stepping back from producing and saying no to things so I could direct more, I couldn't say no because I had this personal stake in making sure that this story also got told. And so, we partnered together, and she had never made a film before, but she obviously was the crux of the story. I could walk her through the filmmaking side of it and have her back that way, and that's where we got to.
I want people to see the film, obviously, so I don't sort of kind of get too into it, but it's fascinating to learn. Why don't I put it this way? Why don't I ask you about this University of Miami study?
Yes.
And what it reveals, which it has, I will say, popped up on this show before, never in the context of documentaries, but it's an interesting issue.
It's incredibly common, and it's been studied and researched, and study after study find conclusive evidence that shows that when men say they're in pain, we say, yes, we believe you, here's a medication, that is physical pain, there you go. When women say they're in pain, we say, we think that probably it's psychosomatic and you should talk to a therapist. And it's not that sounds so simplistic, but this study proved that. And there are countless studies that prove it. And we see it over and over and over and over and over again. And yet still the way that we're treating women, it's I guess it's changing, but maybe slowly. We still want to discount women's pain in the same way I think we discount a lot of what women say is true in their lives. So that frustrates me to no end and makes me angry. And so then we made a film about it.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah.
You know what I think we're really getting here today?
What's that, Guy?
We're getting some real talk.
Thanks, Guy.
You are that guy at the A&B Sound.
He is that guy.
Sam the record man.
Thank you.
Telling
I'm
us
sorry.
like the worst jokes of all time.
I'm sorry.
At the most serious times,
I know.
you just felt, but maybe you felt like the tension needed to be cut there. But I'm going to take it right back there because I want to ask you about right at the beginning of the film. There's a note number 1 because it shows surgical footage.
Yes.
Which always it's funny. I'm the son of a physician, but I can't handle surgical footage.
Laura was so brave. Like, we filmed, and you'll find this out at the beginning of the film, so I'm not spoiling anything, but the first thing, the thing that catapulted us to have to film immediately was that she was having her endometriosis excision surgery, which meant they took out her uterus and an ovary, and she let us film all of it. And her doctor was so supportive about basically saying, you know, if there's something you can do with this entire experience, go and advocate. And so she led us into the operating room, I think to the chagrin of a few of the other folks in there. But yeah, the footage is remarkable. Like, we even have the internal laparoscopic footage from their 4K camera in the operating room.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I've never sort of worked on anything like that. I do remember once as a junior videographer. Why am I telling this? This is so.
Get into it.
This is not
Ryan.
even close to the same
We want
thing.
to hear it.
Well, they sent me on assignment to a slaughterhouse.
Oh man.
And I was like, as I was there, I'm not comparing the two, by the way.
No, but
I guess I am.
I'm a vegetarian, so this seems way worse to me.
But I was like, and I was there, and they were like, you can't be on the floor, but you can shoot through the glass. But I'm like, as I was shooting it, I'm like, I can't show any of this.
Yeah.
We can't show any of this. But what you're showing is powerful and important. But what I wanted to touch on as well is there's not just, I don't know what you'd call it, like a warning, or it gives the audience a heads up. You say there's surgical footage, you say, and it also includes discussion about infertility.
Yes.
And it's almost like you give people a heads up that that's what's coming in the film. And I was intrigued by that.
I mean, I think it comes from just an effort to be sensitive to where the audience might be coming from.
For
when
people
they sit
that are
down.
experiencing that is a huge deal.
It's huge. And that was a massive part about Laura's story, and that's the clip that we showed. Like, she spent 25 years trying to get this diagnosis. Before that, they spent like $40,000 on IVF treatments, which they ultimately, when they finally got to an endometriosis specialist, what she said was, your uterus is a Hallmark greeting card for endo, and I never would have let you do 3 rounds of IVF if I had been treating you before this point. I would have told you to do 1 Hail Mary pass, and that's it. Wow. So it also kind of, I think, is indicative of how compartmentalized our medical system is, and how these different aspects of the body are treated differently, and they're not, they have to be looked at cohesively. Like, the one thing impacts the other thing, and we can't, be in a vacuum with how you treat your brain versus your stomach versus your uterus versus your leg. Like,
when you're an executive, like a producer on a film like this, ultimately, I mean, aside from all this, the business stuff like profitability and growing the brand and all, obviously helping fund future films and all the kind of business stuff. I mean, artistically, socially, what's the goal of a film like this?
We started out, I know for Laura too, it started out very much from an advocacy place. Like, she wanted to do something constructive with this experience because she was feeling this profound loss that resulted from the infertility that's often common when you have in endometriosis. And so for her, I think it was turning this experience into something that could maybe benefit somebody else. For me, I think it was advocacy, but in a slightly broader context of sort of the disease itself, of the medical system, of women's health and how underfunded and underrepresented it is.
We have the best talk show audience in the entire country. That's the only thing I have in common with Donald Trump. Someone says, we have the best. We have the best audience. We have the best.
So good.
But I say it often, like every time we're talking about something on the show, there's guaranteed to be somebody that is directly impacted by it that will share their story with us. Anyway, in our live chat, I'll jump in on YouTube. Jillian says, women aren't listened to. You need to get a man to repeat it. Cheryl says, my 18-year-old daughter just got got diagnosed after 6 years. She was told by doctors that she was hormonal.
Yep.
Being a teenager, she had bad posture. She was a fit, active teen who gave up on her health. She said to me, says Cheryl, I'll just live with the pain, Mom. I'm tired of being gaslit.
100%.
Wow.
Cheryl says,
100%.
meantime, I refuse to give up on her. That's unbelievable.
And that's, yes. And that you need that advocate. You need it's so hard to advocate for yourself, and having somebody with you to support you, to keep you going. And a lot of this pain shows up when you're having your period. And that's the other problem too, is that so many people start off by just being like, oh, well, that's cramps. That's normal.
It's conflated.
And that's the starting point for you having debilitating pain, is that's normal. So we normalize it.
Yeah. Kimberly says, I've had chronic pain since 2020. I can't get a diagnosis. I've not been told it's psychosomatic, but I am so frustrated and I'm getting discouraged and depressed. Meantime, Justin's in the chat. I don't know if you guys know Justin Evans. He says, I've got a ton of respect for these guests, as I worked in the Edmonton film and TV scene for a number of years. I met Katrina and a few others, very passionate and talented folks.
Well, can I jump in on something here? It's really...
No. It depends what you're going to say. Are you going to bring us back to the...
Yeah, it's a weird...
No, actually, this is really...
Is this a joke about promo codes? Okay.
It's not a joke at all. One of the main... And actually, it applies to the next film we're going to talk about as well. But one of the... Probably the number one question I get from most people when programming festivals is, especially a documentary festival, is how do you select the films that are going to be in the festival? Because we only have, we're a small festival on a single screen venue. So we have like 20 spots, and we have 500 films to 600 films submitted every year, plus the ones that I see at other festivals or, might be on my radar from different distributors or whoever. So there's a lot to choose from. It's like, how do you kind of hone in on that? And one of the key probably the number one for me is, and it's really relevant with the two films we've just been talking about, is after seeing hundreds upon hundreds of documentaries, you pop one in and you feel like, I've just learned something that I knew nothing about. I've heard of kelp, I've heard of endometriosis, and I've heard of surfboards. But the approach that these three films took, I realized I knew nothing about, you know what I mean? I learned so much more from the context of the stories you told, that you're so engaged, and it's like, this is what people want to see.
I think that's like... that's the power of filmmaking. We're all choosing to use this form, whether it's documentary or not documentary. It's like the ability to engage with people on that level is sort of what humanity has been based on, right? Is like storytelling. We've done that since the dawn of time. It's like, we'll create a story around this poisonous plant so that the next generation can remember that story and not eat the poisonous plant. So it's like really ingrained in us. And so when we have the opportunity to get behind an issue that we really care about, there isn't a better. This is probably the most powerful means of creating empathy that humans have ever devised. And so we have that opportunity to use it to tell stories that could move the needle in whatever way that might be, whether it's women's health issues, or environmental issues, or you name it, whatever it might be. And that's a really incredible place to be.
Well, there's been so many environmental documentaries over the last 10, 15 years, like so many. So when you could actually kind of tell an environmental story, but in a different sort of way, like you've done with Send Kelp, it's you're kind of like, oh wow, I had no idea kelp was like this useful thing.
No, it's incredible once you start digging into it. And you set the table perfectly for our next guest. We're going to fit in a quick break here, and then we're going to go to California. You want to talk about environmental stories. You want to talk about fascinating subject matter. We're going to talk to the director of the Cigarette Surfboard, which I know you're really excited to be bringing to this festival. Yeah. That's coming up on the other side of this break. Ben Judkins will join us from California. The opening night at NorthwestFest, this is May 9th, right, Guy? This is a big one as well. I know that you guys are really excited about the films that are coming up here. Get the ball rolling. The Alberta premiere of Common Ground. This is the highly anticipated sequel to the 2020 hit documentary. I'm showing it on my screen right now. I feel like this is an episode you got to watch on YouTube. You got to watch this episode on YouTube. This is the sequel to Kiss the Ground. You've got Jason Momoa, Laura Dern, Rosario Dawson, Woody Harrelson. I just need a picture of Jason Momoa right by my Peloton. That's what I need. You know, Woody Harrelson. Woody's not a half shabby. Okay, what am I doing? This is a sweeping and uplifting story of the pioneers of the regenerative movement working tirelessly to bring our planet's entire ecosystem back to life. The Alberta premiere of Common Ground screens May 9th at NorthwestFest. You can find more details by visiting the show notes or their website. Hey, for those of you that are either underemployed or unemployed, but you're skilled electricians, installers, maybe you're an apprentice looking to get your career started, maybe you're great in sales, maybe you're the best office manager anybody ever did see, Kubi Energy wants to talk to you. They've got a careers link that is always open at kubienergy.ca. In other words, they are literally always hiring because they are already Western Canada's busiest solar installer, and 'tis the season where they're getting back up on roofs and helping people achieve their sustainable energy goals. If you'd love to work as part of Canada's green energy movement, maybe you're already in Kamloops or Lethbridge or Calgary or Edmonton, chances are there's a place for you at Kubi Energy. Check out kubienergy.ca. A shout out to Real Talker Neil, who took the time to send us an email. If you've been listening this week, you've heard Neil's story. At his location in his business, they had a freezer malfunction and they started getting a bunch of moisture into the floor, and he was worried that the damage was going to get worse and worse. So what did he do? He called our friends at Complete Care Restoration. Attaboy, Neil. They've got more than 25 years of experience restoring property, rebuilding peace of mind. Kelly, the owner of the company, came out to visit Neil personally, gave him advice. Neil wrote in to tell us what a top-shelf experience it was. If disaster strikes, heaven forbid, in your neck of the woods, don't forget Complete Care Restoration. And as we're talking about stories around the environment, obviously, especially in our part of the world, we talk about emissions. Pathways Alliance is the sixth biggest companies in Alberta's oil sands working with provincial and federal governments to decrease emissions. They're doing this by way of carbon capture and storage initiatives. You can learn more at pathwaysalliance.ca. And we're going to be talking more about this on the show in weeks to come. The Pathways Alliance idea is that we can, working with governments, reduce emissions from operations, protect existing jobs, and create new ones. We know that the world demands responsibly produced energy, and it's what Alberta can provide. Visit pathwaysalliance.ca. All right, we're going to go to California.
He's good, isn't he?
Another crushing it.
I'm ready for a crew change.
I know, right?
Were you guys kind of disappointed? No promo codes on that round.
That's
I
fine.
noticed you had your pencil out.
No. We're mesmerized.
Okay, thank you. Well, just wait till this trailer. Although I know you've seen it already. This is the Canadian premiere of this, isn't it?
It's actually apparently the world premiere.
Come on.
No, dead serious.
Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, without further ado, this is going to blow your mind, everybody. Here is the Cigarette Surfboard.
The whole juxtaposition of this beauty of surfing and this nasty throwaway culture of cigarette butts colliding, I don't think I even knew what I was getting myself into. So how could a surfboard help me hold a mirror up to the ways we're harming the oceans? To ask, well, does it actually have to be that way? And can we think about something differently?
The flick of the ciggy butt, it feels so small.
Throwaway kind of mentality that
floating down the river ends up in the sea.
Like, where do you think these are gonna go? There is no way.
It's a major disconnect.
An icon of trash.
People just threw those and didn't care about it.
Don't really care, out of sight, out of mind over it.
Just complete disregard.
Cigarette butts are the single most picked up item off of beach and urban cleanups. There are trillions of cigarettes dumped every year into the environment.
The winner this year with one of the most creative pieces that we've seen since we started the contest, and I think one of the most poignant pieces with regards to what's happening to the ocean, the cigarette board, Taylor May.
And in Santa Cruz, one surfer is making a bold statement with his surfboard. It's made out of discarded cigarette butts found on the beach.
He agrees it's, quote, visually disgusting
but awesome and how gross it is. This Morning Edition.
There has been no improvement in the health risks of smoking as a result of the filter. We call it the filter fraud.
And they're plastic, and they're leaching these chemicals. What are they doing there?
Exactly.
If we ban the sale of filtered cigarettes, that's a policy that is going to affect a lot of people all at once. It's a simple solution.
This is a clear statement that the health of our oceans is not going to change until we do something about it.
I think the Siggy board represents taking a problem and finding out how you can be part of the solution, but enjoying that process.
We need to shift the story within popular surfing culture of what it means to be a surfer, what's cool in surfing.
As surfers, we have the capacity to seriously influence the world around us.
So more than just making a point, could this surfboard begin to actually make a difference?
It's our pleasure to welcome Ben Judkins to the show, live from California. He's going to be on his way shortly to Edmonton. As I understand, bringing a couple cigarette surfboards with him. Ben, the director of the Cigarette Surfboard, which will be making its world premiere at NorthwestFest Saturday, May 10th at 7 p.m. at the Metro Theater. Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for making time for us, man.
Thanks for having me. This is great to be here. Can't wait to be up in Edmonton with you guys in a few days.
Yeah, so there were a couple things that jump out from the trailer. Number one, not billions of cigarette butts. I felt my stomach clench when it said trillions of cigarette butts into the ocean. And then, but the entire project, awesome in how gross it is. Take us into this. How did this get on your radar?
Yeah, the project began in 2017. My good friend Taylor Lane, who is this average surfer industrial designer from Santa Cruz, California. He came up with the idea to build a surfboard out of the world's most littered item, which is cigarette butts. And, immediately I knew this was a story worth covering. I was immediately intrigued. And as kind of time progressed, the film grew into something way bigger than we ever imagined. It became a lot bigger than just one surfboard being built from cigarette butts. It really opened up access to the professional surfing community and to kind of learn about what people around the world, what professional surfers around the world are doing to give back to the ocean in some way.
I'm a casual surfing fan and a horrible surfer, but I have a huge amount of admiration for it. You don't even have to be a surfing fan to recognize Jack Johnson in the film, although I know you got a bunch of pro surfers participating. The best 40th birthday present I ever had, my wife flew me to Chicago, and we were there for opening night of Jack Johnson's world tour outside, and all of the lanterns, there were all these lanterns strung across the entire concert venue, and he let us know that they were all made out of plastic bottles that had been collected off beaches. This is like a huge thing for him. How difficult or how easy was it to get him and other pros to agree to participate in the film?
Yeah, I mean, he was one of he's a big name. He reaches outside the surfing world, but the cigarette surfboards themselves, I think they gave access to the professional surfing community and to people like Jack Johnson. And as the project continued to grow and we kind of gained a bit of a reputation within the surfing world, and as Taylor, the builder of the boards, as he continued to refine his process and make the boards more functional, it really opened the doors to connecting with more people. And, Jack was we met him at a marine debris conference in San Diego. We went up to him, we said, hey, we have these surfboards built from beach littered cigarette butts. You want to ride one? And he was immediately just on board. He's like, yeah, come out to Hawaii. Just super casual. We got in touch with his agent, and a few months later we were in Hawaii. We were hanging out with Jack. He's just such an incredible guy, such a humble guy. And I think that really, the more you kind of put yourself out into the world and meet people along the way, you kind of say yes to a lot of things. You meet new people. I think really the boards themselves were this access point to connecting with all the people in the film.
Yeah, so these boards have toured all over the place. To me, it looks like they've been in the halls of power and in front of political decision makers, members of the general public. Why do you think the boards themselves are so powerful in the imagery?
Yeah, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. When you see them, they're just so visceral, they're tangible, they're this art piece, but also a functional surfboard. And as you said, I don't think you have to necessarily surf to really get the meaning behind them. And so we've taken them into, classrooms with little kids. We've seen all sorts of people around the world, and everyone's reaction is just so intense. I mean, we've seen the whole spectrum of emotions come out from people seeing these boards. And I think it's something that we can all relate to, whether you're in California and you're seeing these on the beach, or you're in Edmonton and you see these on the city streets, or people flicking them out of their cars. It's something that I think on a global scale, everyone can relate to. It's really a global problem. As Tom Novotny said in the trailer, there's trillions that are littered every year, and that's not an exaggeration. It's the most littered item in the world. These things are made of plastic, and we're excited to come to Edmonton with the boards and see how people react to them. It's always fun to see the excitement that people get from them.
I'm not trying to make everybody angry, including you, Ben, but have you seen this story out of Boca Raton, Florida, the story everybody's talking about now? Have you seen this video of these teens on Daddy's boat just dumping huge cans
of
garbage?
Definitely have not seen this, and this is my real live reaction. Yeah, this is bad.
No, it's like infuriating. And here's the deal.
Don't get started on cruise ships then.
Oh, yeah. Hey, and fair enough. But here's and I just saw this, Ben, like 24 hours ago. This video, and
is this real?
This is 100% real.
My God.
If people Google Boca Raton garbage, they'll find this story. These teens are, like Floridians and people around the world absolutely erupted. Like the anger over this was visceral, and they're now being charged. And it's like it's a huge story. But it just reiterated to me that like right now it just seems like more and more people are taking the health of the ocean seriously. Although your cruise ship comment probably reiterates that maybe we don't fully understand.
I guess what's confusing to me maybe not confusing. Like I understand it, but. Like, okay, we're outraged by this boat and these kids doing this, but literally all of us are doing that. It's just not like, there's not a video with a spotlight of like me dumping garbage off the side of my boat. But like in our own way, our whole world does that all the time. Like that's like we're all doing that. How come we're not outraged by that?
The amount we waste.
Exactly.
That's such a good question. Well, I asked you this question about your film, Wounds Within. So how about you, Ben, with the Cigarette Surfboard? Like ultimately, what would you hope that the film would accomplish? The answer might seem obvious, to get people to quit flicking their ciggy butts into the water, but I imagine it's probably bigger than that.
Yeah, I think it's really it's just about the capacity of anyone to do something bigger than themselves. And I really want to tap onto that last comment about, we're all kind of doing the dumping of the trash in our own ways. I mean, we do explore that in our film. We talk about this idea of a way, right? Like whether it's a ciggy butt or our, air travel emissions or whatever it is, we're kind of just like, we push these things away, and sometimes they're more visual, like dumping trash off a boat or flicking a ciggy butt. But I think the film really invites people to take a look at their own lives and think about like ways in which, they can, in their own small way, be inspired to make change. And we have this just incredible cast of characters that provides this toolkit of, it's, again, the film it straddles surf film and environmental documentary. It uses surfing as that tool to talk about all these things, but it really connects the dot between, we have a character who's a professional surfer, but also a farmer. We have a character who's a scientist, but also a professional surfer. We have a character who we have Jack Johnson, this infamous musician who's using his platform to create change on a global scale with changing, not using plastic cups at his shows. So there's just a lot of ways that I think people can watch the film. You can get inspired by whatever story it is that is within the larger context of the film. And, I know that people will walk out feeling inspired to do something in their own life or in their own community. And that's, we set out to make this film to not make another depressing environmental documentary. We really don't stick with the problem for too long. We kind of go into the solution. So I think there's just a lot of solutions to be taken from it, other than, the big point of the film is trying to ban the sale of these single-use cigarette filters in the city of Santa Cruz, where Taylor lives. And, hopefully that can be have this ripple effect around the world.
Yeah, let's say the music and the surf photography is phenomenal. The film's amazing. I want to talk about cigarette filters in just a little bit, but I want to ask you, pick your brain, Guy, as the festival director. What was it when you first saw this one? You went, we got to get this one.
Well, and I want to actually just kind of speak to something that Blake just said and that Ben just said about the. It's although this film, it's specifically the cigarette butt waste, and I mean, I'm an ex-smoker. I mean, I watched this film and I was mortified, thinking, Ben, of how many cigarette butts I flicked out of my car window over the years when I was younger. And you don't think
Not
of
to mention all the wildfires you probably started.
Yeah, no. And it's like, it's
Real
just
talk.
one of those things.
Real talk.
We're coming
where
into
you
the season.
Yeah.
You threw them onto the ground, stamp it out on a bar floor, wherever. But it's interesting. I'm going to use maybe a weird example. A couple days ago, I was on the cesspool known as X, and somebody was on this rant. Somebody who was in Edmonton from out of town, like from within Alberta from out of town, and it was this whole rant of like, oh, Edmonton, why have you gone so crazy? I was at the McDonald's drive-thru with my 4 kids, and they wanted me to pay 15 cents for a bag, and went on this whole rant about how wokeism is destroying this city and all. It was crazy, right?
That's considered wokeism?
Yeah, well, everything is now, right? It's the catch-all phrase. But the point I'm trying to make is the reason the city put this sort of policy in place is to make us all think twice about how much you're using, how many single-use items you're using, and how much you're wasting for no reason. Like the way I was raised, and I mean, my parents were from an older generation that didn't have a lot. So things got reused.
Depression era.
Yeah, and that's how I was raised. It's like it's funny. They were like the most recycle friendly generation, really. But it was just, you don't just throw everything away after you used it once. And it's just a matter of just think about it, right? So the 15 cents is just a symbol of like, do you really need the bag that you're just going to pull your burger out of and then throw in the trash?
Yeah.
Probably not. So what struck me about this film is my own past as an ex-smoker and how many butts I personally contributed to the environment. Because the one thing that never dawned on me is, it's just going to sound stupid to say, and then watching this film, it's like, oh yeah, and I bet you most people never thought of this. That filter, there's plastic. It's the plastic. You just think of it as, I throw it on the ground and it's gone. It's out of sight, out of mind. And it's like, it's out of mind, but it's not out of sight.
Well, and yeah, so Ben, let me ask you about this, and we'll let you go because I know you do literally have to catch a flight. You got to get up here. You got lots going on. But the cigarette filter, a lot of people don't think about it. But the film gets into this. People want to go see the film. I don't want to spoil everything, but you point out that the filters basically don't do shit except cause huge problems, right? What do you think? Like, I mean, I've got buddies that think that cigarettes are going to be banned 50 years from now. I got other buddies. Everyone has their own opinion. But the future of the cigarette filter, I know you're talking about a municipal bylaw, but what do you think maybe like stateswide? What do you think maybe up in Canada, around the world, maybe let's say 5-10 years from now? Can you see a day or age where cigarettes are filterless? I think a lot of people believe that they're somehow like pulling the carcinogens out or something, but can you give us a reality check?
They call it the filter fraud, which is a really good way of putting it. And basically, I don't want to give away too much of the film, but the tobacco companies basically created filters in the 50s or 60s around the time when the Surgeon General's report came out and said that, smoking causes cancer. And that was just a complete ad campaign to sell more cigarettes, was putting filters in the cigarettes. And really what we're learning now is that the filters actually don't really do all that much. There's an ongoing study that is hoping to prove that the filter actually causes more types of cancers and actually more aggressive types of cancers. So as far as policy being passed, I really do think that is coming. I think, hopefully a couple towns, a couple cities can start passing these policies that can lead to more statewide regulations, nationwide, and hopefully eventually this becomes a thing of the past. I mean, that's what's our hope with the film. Let's make this a thing of the past. These filters really on a, economically, environmentally, human health, they're not doing shit.
Yeah.
Ben, you're right with how much you talk about how that basically ad campaign worked, because when I was a teenager, a good friend of mine in high school, his dad, he was like a pack-a-day smoker, and he smoked Players Plain, unfiltered cigarettes.
Yeah.
And we thought he was nuts. It's like,
yeah,
oh
you
my
thought
God.
that was like from the 30s.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, we've got the filtered cigarettes. Whew, we're okay. We're going to be okay.
But I didn't even know they were plastic. Like when you just think
Exactly.
about, like if I were to light my Tupperware on fire and then inhale, like
Inhale.
that
You'd never
can't
do
be
that.
good, right?
Yeah.
Like it must be worse. I don't know.
Yeah, wild stuff. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's going to be a packed house, and just to be clear, you are bringing at least one surfboard up to Edmonton when you make the trip from Cali, yeah?
We're bringing, I think, 2 Siggy boards. We're gonna
Nice.
have them there.
Siggy boards.
Come
I love
hang
it.
out, check them out. We'll let you pick them up. I heard there's a wave park in Edmonton. I hear there's a surfing scene up there. Maybe we can get someone to take us out.
You can
for
pop
a
up
rip.
and maybe do like one turn on a wave, but it's
Like
worth it.
at West Edmonton Mall.
Yeah,
The Edmonton
there's a surf
there's
club.
a surf club there now.
Surf there?
There's a
Yeah.
surf club.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There's a surf club, and you can get in. You can get in
Yeah.
like a couple turns.
It's like pop up practice. It's
don't
really
they-
great.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then there's that. What do they call it? I mean, we don't want to draw people away from Edmonton as you're hosting your film festival here. But in Calgary, what do they have that like? What do they call them, Ben? There's like in rivers, it's like the perpetual wave or something
It's
like
a river
that. You know,
surf.
you know what they're called?
River
Standing
surfing.
wave?
Yeah.
Standing wave.
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But there's
Ben-
also in Edmonton, there's the Alberta River Surf Association.
Okay, so basically what we're saying is you're going to need to visit for a month.
Ben, make sure. I think that might be a really good publicity opportunity, is to bring the surfboard into the West Edmonton Mall for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, let's do it. Do you guys know anyone who can?
Oh,
get
yeah,
us in
we'll
there?
get
Are there any
connected. We'll
other
get you connected
pro
up.
Surfers in Edmonton.
Yeah, we'll get you connected. No pros,
100%.
but
Yeah, 100%.
I think Blake sounds to me like
I
Blake's
just
a
got
bit of a
back.
surfer
I just
pro.
got back from a surf trip actually.
Oh, you
There
did?
you go.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Down in Costa Rica.
Oh, by the way, Ben, this is Blake McWilliam that you're hearing from. His film Send Kelp is going to be streaming at the festival. We're also hanging out with Katrina Beatty, who's filmed The Wounds Within, an Endometriosis Story. So that's who you're hearing. The voices.
Yeah,
as
sorry,
well.
it's
Are
just
you guys
like
all,
voice
are you
of
guys all
God.
meeting for the first time, kind of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
right here?
Oh, we know each
we'll
other.
come meet Ben on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I blew it. I said it's Saturday, May 11th.
Yes.
Oh, it's Saturday.
Sorry about that. That was on me. That's Saturday, May 11th. You can check out the global premiere of the Cigarette Surfboard. The director of that joining us live from California.
And it's a great movie.
That's
It really
Ben
is.
Judkins. You got to see this one.
Yeah,
I mean,
people are going to love it. It's a great movie, Ben.
absolutely. Ben, thanks for making time for us, man. And it's always a good day in Cali. Have a great day in Cali.
Have a great day in Edmonton. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, you
Thank
bet, brother. That's right. That's the Cigarette Surfboard.
I have said my entire life as a born and raised prairie boy, Manitoba and Alberta, I was meant to be born and raised in California.
Yeah.
I think
You
everyone
too, I
in
think,
North
right?
America wants to say
Yeah,
that.
I think
My
so.
dad-
I don't. I don't
No?
think I belong. If I were to be, L.A., New York, I'm way New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like a walkable city.
So do I. And the pace.
And I just
So do I.
love everything happening all at once. And like you can catch the opera and a show and dinner all in the same night somehow. And I love that. The driving in LA would drive me fucking bonkers.
Yeah, but that's why you don't live in L.A. You live in like Santa Monica or something.
I know,
You
but everybody still lives everywhere.
You know what's interesting? So I lived in Toronto for quite a while, and I didn't own a car because I could not drive in that city. But I drive in LA, no problem, because the whole city was built around the vehicle, right? But it's to me, it's just like driving around Edmonton, just bigger. Like it's really built around the automobile, so I don't feel uncomfortable driving.
We had a
in that city.
fascinating, we had a really interesting conversation. I'm taking this in like off on a major tangent here, but we had an interesting conversation yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys heard, but the provincial government is looking. Some people think it's a distraction. Some people think it's a huge waste of money. But the province is looking at expanding passenger rail service across the province, including a rail line. Maybe not necessarily a high-speed rail. I think that would be baller. But a rail line in between Calgary and Edmonton. And we were asking people on the show whether or not they would use it. Like, would you take the train between Calgary and Edmonton? Presumably, you'd obviously stop in Red Deer, these types of things. And I could get to the responses people had and get to our poll. But would you, if there was a train between Calgary and Edmonton, would you take it?
If it was high speed, I actually think it would be a phenomenal thing for the film industry because we pull crew from both centers. And so if it was something where you could actually get on in the morning, get off at and go back home at the end of the day kind of thing, that would be a massive step for for us to being able to, really utilize the resources in both places. So yeah, for sure.
Do you think you would use it?
Yeah, I would. I think that it's sort of a chicken and egg scenario, because on either end, I'm sure lots of people are talking about this, is like, what do you do when you land in that location? But if that infrastructure was there, it would foster the kind of more walkable city or development of a better transit system in both sides, so that you could just go to Edmonton, Calgary. You don't need a car on either end of it. I think that's the kind of the missing piece, but it could catalyze that.
That's a huge missing piece. Would you use it?
100%, because you have to get to even for a short hop flight, say from Edmonton to Calgary, you have to get to an airport.
To the airport. Yeah.
So much.
Johnny and I were saying
so
that
early
airport,
these days that I mean, driving to Calgary is pretty much the same. It takes the same amount of time. And if you're flying, you're going to have to rent a car on either, anyway.
So I was going to wait until Monday to reveal these poll results, because I was like, why are filmmakers going to give a shit about this?
No,
but here we are.
But we're people that live here too, and it's like, this 100%. Is important.
Plus, it's convenient, and you can do stuff while someone else is driving you. It's the same reason whenever I go to Toronto.
I do love that.
Right?
When I go to Toronto now, I take that UP Express train from the airport to downtown.
Yeah.
It's 25 minutes, and you're downtown, and you're not sitting in traffic, and you can be on your phone, do whatever.
Free Wi-Fi.
Exactly. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I've got that car converter so that someone else can drive, and I can just be going.
It's you're like gonna love
my
self-driving
office car.
cars.
So what are the poll results?
I'm gonna love it. So here there's 2 hours left in the poll. We've had about 1,400 votes. We asked, would you use? Now again, I put high-speed rail service. Some people are saying, well, Premier's not talking about high-speed rail service.
Well, she should be.
And again, some people are just pissed that I'm even asking this, because they're saying you're being manipulated and misled, and this is a distraction. I'm just asking, would you ride the fucking train? That's all I'm asking. High-speed rail service between Calgary and Edmonton. 1,400 respondents. 64% say yes.
That's
so
not surprising.
Let's call it like 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
It's not surprising to me either.
No.
17% say it depends, and like 1 in 5, let's say 19% say no. But yeah, some of the comments here, like Xbone says it depends on cost, trip time, what I'm using it for. A lot of my work trips, I'd still need wheels to get to my final destination, but I'd love an option that allows me to access Calgary flights without dealing with transfers. You know who I bet probably the biggest opponent of this train would be is Edmonton International Airport, because this could really hurt EIA, which already fights to get flights, right? Calgary's got more direct flights.
Definitely.
Liam says, as far as I'm concerned, it's just regular passenger service, and I pointed out, but high speed would be baller, which of course is true. Some say it just reminds them, like Cal just says it reminds me of the Simpsons episode. Johnny was singing the monorail refrain for us yesterday. Matt the Framer says if it went straight to the airport, maybe, depending on price. Flights usually cheaper out of Calgary, he says, but I find it hard to think of a reason why I'd use it. Angela nailed that concern with the rail option, maybe less flights out of Edmonton. Sarah says, I saw estimates of the train costing like $60. It would be cheaper for me to drive there. She's obviously driving a fuel-efficient vehicle. If she's
the most fuel-efficient vehicle ever created.
A bunch of Tesla drivers were chiming in saying their cars are already driving them to Calgary or Edmonton. They don't have to worry about it. I'm not sure if it's actually 100% legal yet.
You got to have a hand on the wheel.
There's because some people. I remember hearing about a guy that got pulled over literally sleeping in his Tesla.
I wouldn't trust it.
I wouldn't trust it either. Not after those stories of them going into trees and blowing up.
I also feel like we've been hearing about this rail line between Edmonton and Calgary for a very long time
since like Ralph
now.
Klein or even before then.
So I hesitate to think that it's going to happen.
But people from Calgary could come check out NorthwestFest.
That's
Boom.
True, they could.
Oh, that would be nice.
You know what the main question? Here's the main answer. Do we have the population to support it? This is the thing. If you're talking
about...
If
you build it, they will come.
Yeah. If you're talking about places
what's the population supposed to increase in Alberta over the next whatever years?
It depends on who you talk to. It depends on who you talk to, but they say it's going to double in the next 4 years.
And Red Deer's going to be a city of 1 million people.
Well, says that's not happening. I know you're kidding. You got to be kidding. No offense to Red Deer. I met my wife in Red Deer. I love Red Deer, but come on.
But I think it's going to be 6 months that it's going to be 1 million people.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but like not by increasing immigration.
First.
No, we're not touching immigration. We're just going to grow. It's just going to be the people in Red Deer. They're actually outlawing contraception in Red Deer. I'm not sure if you heard this.
Well, they've got to get to 1 million people.
They've got to get to 1 million as quickly as possible.
You say that as a joke, but that is my biggest fear. That is what is coming. Ugh.
Yeah, we can get serious on that if you want.
It's real talk.
I mean, it's real talk. We have no time. We got no deadline. Are you surprised at the poll results, Johnny? 64% saying that they would ride the train, 20% saying hard no.
Pretty much what I expected. Yeah. But I agree with you that I think the powers that be would be clamping down on this, because already, like Guy was saying, like Cheryl Oates, we know Cheryl. She'd rather take a plane because it's the same as driving, right? You go to the airport, you wait a bit, you get on a plane, it's 45 minutes, then you get off, get a car or whatever. It's 3 hours. But yeah, it'd be a big hit for the airlines.
Short flights annoy me. I don't know if it's the way
I said that yesterday.
It's the way that I'm wired. I like to get in. Yeah. I'm going to tell you something very controversial. People will judge me for this. I should not admit this publicly. But I like to get on the plane. I like to take my shoes off.
You're that guy?
Disgusting.
Your shoes off guy?
Jesperson.
Shoes off guy. Whoa. With or without socks?
No, socks for sure.
Okay.
For sure, socks.
Do you have special airplane socks that you switch out?
I wear very comfortable socks, and I make sure that I have deeply washed my feet. The morning of, so there's no odor.
That hour of waiting in security.
But I understand it's extremely unpopular. It's like saying you pick your nose in public or something like that. Like, I understand, like, people post photos on Instagram of the asshole next to them with their shoes off.
I'm fine with it.
I'm that guy.
I don't take my shoes off, but I'm fine with it as long as you're not sticking your socked feet up onto my armrest.
No. What am I, an animal? What am I, an animal?
Are you going to be a shoes off guy on the train?
Well, it depends how long the trip is. Like, this is
high speed. You don't need to.
High speed. I don't need
but
to.
On I'm going
to be leaning up on the bar having a martini. But this is what I was saying about what annoys me on the short flights is I don't need to go through parking, security, boarding, only to be wheels up and then wheels down, and then all of a sudden I'm back into what do they call it? Deplaning, and getting my forget about it.
Yeah.
But I
can't remember the last time I flew to
ripped
Calgary.
in the live chat right now. Like, Travis is calling me a monster.
Wow.
You've done this to yourself.
Hey,
Ryan.
but what about this noob? Try again. Says I'm shoes off with socks, but he says he has 14 double E feet, so it's more about space.
Oh,
whoa!
Wow,
Guys,
that's pretty
flying with a.
Is he tall?
Leslie is suggesting that I just bring slippers, and Leslie, you're probably right.
That's a good idea.
Slippers. I like that.
I suggest you just fly private if you're doing shit like that.
Well, if we can get a few more sponsors, then maybe we can start flying private and quit messing around with all this.
I mean, that might kill the environmental advocacy we've done here today.
Oh my gosh. And this is and this is like Mariah is calling me gross, and I respect her opinion. This is real trouble here. And meantime, I want to fit Kimberly's comment in. Kimberly says it's not funny. You shouldn't be joking about contraception. There is something coming around limiting abortion. 100%, Kimberly, and we talk about it on the show all
I don't
the time.
think we were joking.
No,
I'm serious.
I wasn't joking at all.
I'm petrified about that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't joking at all. So, maybe a further conversation for another day. These last 10 minutes is the whole point of these Real Talk
Finally,
roundtables.
we've got a good show.
Finally, we got something interesting.
But I think like you're talking about deflection, and maybe this the announcement is about deflection. It's like it kind of does tie into like what Ben is talking about with the cigarettes and the way that like there's misdirection, like we're trying to sell a thing, and so we're going to create this idea of filters on cigarettes to try to like deflect from it. You were talking about the powers that be, sort of, and it's like the films that we're making, the stories that we're telling are means to which we can explore and maybe take down some of those walls a little bit and sort of expose them.
So well said. I'm so grateful for the three of you hanging out with us here today. I knew we were going to have a good time and learn a little bit. And of course, this is like just planting the seed. Like, you got to go see these films, and you can meet these directors and producers in person. They're going to be there, which is so cool.
Can I actually be serious for a moment based on something you just said?
Sure.
Because this is legit, and I don't want to be. I know there's been a lot of festivals crying the blues over the last few years and going public with crying the blues, particularly a large documentary festival, say in Ontario.
Subtle Gee.
Yeah, so I'm not going to do that, but I am going to say something that is really like, this is the God's honest truth. A lot of different industries and businesses and everything have. It's taken a long time to rebound from the pandemic. What I found, like anecdotally, but also just from talking to colleagues at other festivals, reading different things, with film festivals, it's the documentary / nonfiction festivals that are having a particularly hard time seeing those audience numbers rebound. And I think this is based on this is just an opinion, but I think what happened is, when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, it was the perfect storm because that's right when Netflix released Tiger King. And everybody was stuck at home, and everybody watched Tiger King, and then suddenly their algorithm was, you might also like, and it was filled with documentaries. So suddenly everyone was at home realizing, oh my God, I can watch all these documentaries at home. I had no idea there were so many. So you would think, oh, that increased people's interest in docs, which it did, but it also increased their interest in staying home and watching them on TV. So what we've found is it's been a really tough road seeing our audience numbers rebound. We have a genre festival in the fall, and we had great crowds out to that last fall. The Documentary Fest, we're seeing a lot more resistance, people leave. And I get it. There's a million things to do and fighting for your interest and your dollar. But I will say, it's great to have filmmakers on and talk about these great movies and show all these clips, and awesome. But what we really need also is for people to come and see the films at the theater. It supports the festival. It supports the Metro Cinema, which is the only art house independent theater left in this city.
And the way you should watch a movie.
It is the way you should watch a movie.
You come in and the curtain opens and then you see it. It's like, it's the perfect
You have the best
bookend.
popcorn.
The popcorn's so good. They're licensed. You can have a beer in your seat.
Exactly.
And the cool thing about the film festival is that these are opportunities to see films before they're anywhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes even the only place
The only
to see
place.
these films.
Exactly.
Like, an independent film hopes to be able to be seen somewhere publicly, but ultimately we're all just trying to find an audience, find people who are interested in the story that we're telling. And so if this is the only place to be able to see it, this isn't something you can pick up on Netflix. You can't wait for, the whatever, Amazon Prime or
That's
whatever
really
to pick
interesting,
up this film.
because I could send you a list, literally. I could probably sit down this weekend and compile a list of great films I've programmed at various festivals over the last 15 years that people loved, right? You saw the audience ratings, like people loved, and never heard from again. Yeah. It's like, where can you check every streaming service, you can't find it. There's, DVDs are a thing of the past, basically. So it's really, it's really something special. People who do go, especially if they're going for the first time, are like, this is really cool. This isn't just like going to the multiplex on a Friday night. It's just not.
I encourage. This is a really local reference here, but there's a guy named Sandy who used to work for the CBC, as a matter of fact, and he took a buyout package and he opened what he always had this dream. He opened a stationery shop called The Prince and the Paper.
I love that place.
Is that the one on 124?
It is. It's on 124th Street in Edmonton. I want everybody to
so
go.
Well curated.
It's so well curated. He's a huge Wes Anderson fan. He does what do you call storefront displays? Like he's a master of the storefront display.
Amazing children's book section.
We buy all our kids' books there, or many of them. I buy all of my blank cards. I really like handwritten
amazing
cards.
card selection.
He's got really neat stuff
and weird, quirky stuff.
That's the store that doesn't move, right?
Yeah,
it's stationary.
Honestly, man, we're gonna cut your mic if you don't knock this off.
That one was really bad.
So anyway, I'm in the Prince and the Paper the other day, picking something up, and he gets old archival photos and he prints onto plexiglass.
Yes. Cool. They're stunning.
So they pop these big blown up images, these archive images, and then frames them, and they're stunning. They're amazing. And so he's got this shot from 1952 of Jasper Avenue in Edmonton. It's in the shop right now. If you're listening to this on the week we're doing this, beginning of May 2024, go into the shop and see it. The point of me bringing this up is that there's all these wonderful cars from the 40s and 50s, and people, it's a night time lapse shot, so you can't really see the people. But guess it goes. It's theater, restaurant, shoe store, theater, restaurant, theater, diner, bank, theater. There's like 5 or 6 theaters in 2 blocks.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, it was like this golden era of like, that's where people went. That's what people did.
Yeah.
This wonderful kind of tradition. And I love that festivals like this remind people. I love your enthusiasm.
Oh, I love that
you're
story.
like, this is how you're supposed to
What,
watch.
Oh, and I love Metro Cinema. I have so much enthusiasm.
Well, and it's fascinating you bring this up because, we talk about, and now we're seeing it again post-pandemic with a lot of downtowns, especially in mid-sized cities, right? Like this one. really struggling to come back and have people downtown. But we were basically architects of our own demise. I remember growing up in Winnipeg. I mean, my first job was in a movie theater in downtown Winnipeg because that's where all the movie theaters were. It was the same thing. It was within a 4-block radius.
It's where all the babes were, Guy.
There were like 10 theaters, but there were people everywhere because you had to go downtown. We started building multiplexes in the suburbs, and which is nothing wrong with that, but that's where everybody went and that's where everybody stays.
Yep.
And all the movie theaters in the downtown cores of all these cities closed.
It's so sad. I saw a friend of mine actually made a film called The Story of Film on Handmade Film, and she went in and she filmed a bunch of old theaters that have become desolate, and one of the ones she got to go into was the Paramount downtown, and that one is so depressing because when you go in, you just see where someone, I don't know why, but someone chopped the middle out of the screen to make, like, I don't know, a smaller screen somewhere else. I don't know why, but it was like this beautiful, massive screen that somebody just like took a pair of scissors and was like, yeah, let's just cut it chop.
When I first moved to Edmonton and the Paramount was still open, I mean, regularly there would be lineups around the block to get into that place. It was like the crown jewel theater.
I saw Men in Black there when I was a kid. And Armageddon.
They did midnight shows, everything. I mean, it was amazing.
I feel like these are all good reasons to go to the movies. It's like support the community, support the festival. But there's amazing films playing at this festival.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the programming at NorthwestFest is amazing programming. And so, yes, a good reason to think about going there is we should go out to a movie. We should support the community. We should support the festival. But like, these are awesome movies.
Oh yeah.
And we've only talked about 3, 4, 5 of them maybe here today, but how many total?
There's not that many. We've really reduced the number of, I think it's 18 or 20 features.
Yeah.
I'll be there the whole week, and I am every year.
You are.
I love the programming at NorthwestFest.
Yes, you mentioned that before. Thank you. She's not just saying that because she's on the show. You have told me that before.
No, I genuinely love it. Like, documentary is so powerful because you already have the benefit of the doubt because it's a true story. You don't have to get the audience to buy into a world you've created. The world exists. So it's like you're going into this thing that already can touch you because you can relate to it potentially because these are real people that are walking down the street every single day and that are doing these different things or having these different experiences. And at the crux of what we do, we use, even when we're trying to do these things to advocate, we use this the emotional through line of these individual stories to do it. And I think that's why people want to watch movies. They want to get taken on this journey, this emotional journey to and learn something along the way.
Well, and one of the things I've really tried to do with the programming over the years with this festival, when it was global, and part of the reason we rebranded, when it was Global Visions, I mean, they showed some great movies, but everything, they kind of had more of a mandate of like, everything had to be kind of an activist-based, serious, which is fine, but it is a little bit more niche because everything was like people would say to me, oh, is that the one? Do I have to bring like a protest sign if I'm coming to a movie?
Right.
It's like,
am I signing up for something?
Yeah, they wouldn't show music documentaries. They wouldn't show pop culture docs. And it's like, well, we want people to also have a good time. Like, you're supposed to enjoy. So you can talk about serious subjects, but you can do it in an entertaining and engaging manner. And we just try and find a balance between some stuff that's going to maybe be really serious and provocative and start some conversations. But then we have things like Billy and Molly, an Otter Love Story.
I'm so excited for that one.
Oh my God.
Is there anything you're not so excited
No,
for?
No, but this movie.
I mean, I love movies.
So
I
Billy,
am such a fan of your enthusiasm. We need more of this. I need to put that in a bottle.
So Billy and Molly, I read the synopsis before seeing it at South by Southwest, and it was like, okay, it's this Scottish farmer shepherd who kind of befriends an otter. So I assumed, okay, this is going to be really DIY, kind of maybe shot with his iPhone 4. And I'm watching this film, and it's absolutely stunning. Because the filmmaker, so it's National Geographic, and the filmmaker's been making films for National Geographic for like 25 years. So the film is stunning, but the story and the heart, you'll bawl.
I know I will, because I'm a dog lover, and they look like little dogs, otters.
They're so adorable. It's just,
I love their cuddle puddles.
It's a beautiful story because they use the relationship between this kind of stoic man and an animal to tell kind of a bigger story just about family and love and loss and acceptance. Like it's really pretty deep movie,
like My Octopus Teacher almost.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, dude,
exactly. So good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw My Octopus Teacher, and then we on Real Talk, I guess this was about a year and a half ago, something like that, when it came a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then we did like a series of interviews after that, talking to experts on the octopus, because I was just like,
amazing.
I haven't eaten octopus since. I'm a huge fan of sushi. I mean, I'm a hypocrite on what I do eat and don't eat. Like, don't you could twist me up in knots on what I do and don't do, because there's hypocrisy everywhere.
Yeah.
But that film was such a masterful story. You know, there's a gal, I'm trying to remember her name. My apologies to her. I think she's out of the University of Lethbridge. There's an Albertan intellectual, like a professor, that was the scientific advisor on My Octopus Teacher. She's out of Alberta. Yeah, and we interviewed her on the show. It was awesome.
Interestingly, there's another former Edmonton documentarian, Niobe Thompson, who is a good friend of Craig Foster, who created that film, and they might be working on something. But there's a bunch of little Edmonton connections to that film. But speaking of the otters, actually, the otter factors, not to jump back to Send Kelp, but there's an otter story to the kelp story on the West Coast.
You're winning me over there, Blake.
Here we go. Exactly. There's otters. On the West Coast, the extirpation of the otters by like fur traders, similar to beaver, ended up causing deforestation of kelp forests, because otter primarily eat urchin. And without the otter, the urchin populations go unchecked, and they basically just like raise whole ocean forests from kelp, all because of the way that the otter interacts with the ecosystem. So it's like,
see, we talk about people learning stuff that they wouldn't have known.
Yeah,
right?
It's an example of how interconnected all of these things are, and when one thing goes out of balance, everything goes out of balance.
Exactly, and people ought to know that.
Oh, gee.
So,
we got a good show for you tonight.
I'm just doing it because it drives me crazy.
By the way, it was Dr. Jennifer Mather, Dr. Jennifer Mather, probably, who joined us. That was May 17th of 2021. I was still rocking that piss poor haircut, but May 17th of 2021, Dr. Jennifer Mather. If you want to go back into our look at that, kelp all through the film.
My Octopus Teacher. I mean, actually, this whole movie takes place in a kelp forest. That's where the octopus.
That is a beautiful film.
Yeah, it really is.
I bawled my flipping eyes out.
Unbelievable.
Oh, you meant the octopus.
Another film
and yours.
I haven't seen Blake's yet. I will see it in a couple weeks.
Another one I just wanted to briefly mention is it's actually right after Billy and Molly, the Otter Love Story, is and on Mother's Day is
that little otter hand.
I know
in the poster
is a film called The Day Iceland Stood Still. And it's funny because the filmmakers even said they made this story because they made this film because they realized that a lot of people, everyone in Iceland knows about it, but a lot of people around the world don't know. So Iceland is kind of known for being on the forefront of especially women's rights. Like they've been really at the forefront, and they were one of the first countries to ever have like a female prime minister or president.
Right, yeah.
In 1975, all of the women of Iceland staged a walkout/strike. No matter what they did, if they worked in a factory or a store or were a homemaker or whatever, they all walked out, and this movement started to try and convince all the women of the country to walk out. The point being to show everyone else, i.e. the men, that society will fall apart without us. It's such an incredible story, but it's really entertaining. Like it's funny and it's got some amazing archival footage. But you're watching this going like, how have I never heard about this? You know, it was so groundbreaking. That's and then it kind of goes through, were they able to actually pull this off? And the ripple effect from that. Fascinating.
I love that. In our live chat, Tara says, just checking out the schedule right now, says the Fire Tower film looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
Tara says that she read Trina Moyle's book, which is music to my ears, Tara, after Trina joined us on the show just a couple of weeks ago talking about her experiences as a Fire Tower lookout and the wildfire season coming up. Tara says, I really enjoyed it. So the Fire Tower, another film you can check out at NorthwestFest. And again, we'll just direct you back to their website where you can see all of this, the full lineup. That's northwestfest.ca. It's where you can get your tickets, check out the lineup, learn more about the films. A quick plug for a couple of things here on Real Talk. If you check out our website, that's ryanjesperson.com, on our homepage, if you scroll down to the bottom, and you can see there you can sign up for our newsletter. It's obviously free, and this is a great way to stay plugged in with the show. This weekend, courtesy of our friends at NorthwestFest, we're going to be giving away a few pairs of tickets.
Did you know that?
Probably
I knew
news
nothing
to
about
Guy.
this, yeah.
I'm like, Guy's like, it's really important for us to be able to financially keep the and then I'm like, and we're going to give away a bunch of tickets. But this is a special perk for Real Talkers, so you got to subscribe to our newsletter. That email is going to be going out this weekend, and we'll tell you how you can qualify to win. And then for our Real Talk patrons, those of you that support us on Patreon, we're so grateful for you. You can go to the Connect link and learn more about supporting us on Patreon. We have tickets set aside for you as our appreciation, and the number is capped, but check your inbox and we'll let you know how you can qualify. That's our Real Talk patrons. We're so grateful for you. I'm grateful for this roundtable. It's been so much fun hanging out with you. To Ben, who joined us from California, Katrina joining us here in studio, Blake as well, and Guy, of course. Do you guys want to stick around for our Friday tradition? You have no idea what you're getting. Do you know what the Flamethrower is? These are all real emails from audience members.
Whoa!
I would love to stick around.
Okay,
for
so
this
is my favorite 5 minutes of the whole week. This is presented by our friends, buckle up, at the DQs, the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. These are all real emails that are submitted to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's time to bring the heat, all right? This is time for you to step up on our blowtorch. We want you to bring your hot takes. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, Baseline Road. This from Colin, who says, I've been listening to Real Talk for days and days about the plight of the municipalities, the municipal governments in Alberta. I have to ask, where the fuck is all the money going? What is the province spending our money on? Our current royalty revenues, the second highest in history. They've slashed funding to the cities. They've slashed funding to universities. We have the lowest per capita spending in Canada on public education. Our healthcare system appears to be falling apart. They're borrowing money to put into the Heritage Fund. So what the fuck are they spending this revenue on? They want to do an audit on Edmonton. Who's doing an audit on the province? This fallacy of conservatives being good with money needs to die. If you can't budget on this revenue, then when can you? That from Colin. What about this one from LD, who says, I don't even know where to begin, Jesperson, after your Tap-Yag interview. This political party in Edmonton, I was so angry at the attitude. All they could come up with was lower taxes, cool events, good vibes. I would have voted for David Dorward if that was all we needed. Remember David Dorward used to grow up ponytails and then cut it off and sell it for charity? Love Dave. Says, what we don't need is a bunch of UCP suck-ups. I voted for my counselor after reading her platform, listening to and liking what she had to say. It goes on to say, Sohi, Salvador, Paquette, Jen, Stevenson, Knack, Wright, Principe, working to get a fair shake for our city, working collaboratively, while our insane premier hands out millions of dollars in patronage appointments and softly lit videos that harm kids. I really resent that they think I need a municipal party to tell me what to think. And as for Gen Z, you really think they're worried about property taxes? Have you ever talked to anybody from Gen Z? What do you think they think about? Living wages, rent controls, public transit, a screwed up climate, fair access to public services. You know what? All this stuff, get out of the city. Go live in Grand Prairie or something. Whoa! Seems to be your preferred model. That from LD. Okay, what about this one from Gabriel, who says, first things first, let's fucking go Connie Walker. Gabriel says, I love that interview, Jespo, with the Pulitzer and Peabody winner, one of Times 100, the creator of the Stolen podcast series. Gabriel says, what a star, and all the power to Connie and her future. Secondly, I don't need to blow smoke up your ass, Jespo, but props on the interview with the tap me straight in my head, folks. Okay, but what universe does this trio live in? It's hard to be specific. We even know where to start with this, but it made me angry. I got to be honest with you. Like, what the fuck was this vapid, vague, platitude-riven bullshit that was spewed, honestly shocking from folks that apparently want to make a difference in municipal politics? There was like one mention of livability in the entire take, and it took 15 minutes for them to get there. Now, maybe political parties on a municipal level can make a culture change and be more honest honest with civilians? I doubt it, but maybe they could make that their goal. The main highlighted gripes: potholes, snow clearing, property tax burden on single-family homes. This can't be serious. Gabe says, let me be very, very, very clear. If municipal leaders are telling you they can have low taxes, great roads, cleared roads, and forever expand single-family homes into a suburban hellscape, they are fucking lying to you, in all caps. The reason every city in this country is barely hanging on is because of suburban sprawl. Developers love it because it statistically produces the best and greatest profit margins. I'm just going to call this what it is, a fucking fairy tale. We just want to play nice, get along, hold hands, and be innovative. These are the same folks who probably cheer for paying CEOs tens of millions of dollars to make the really hard decisions on what percentage of workers to cut to increase profitability. He says, affordable housing or road maintenance to fix potholes? Fuck poor people, I guess, because potholes win every single time. That from Gabe. And how about this one from James, after we talked about Randy Boissonneau, the ethics commissioner. He's on that board, and they got a bunch of appointments in federal dollars. Tough spot for Randy. James says it's disappointing to hear about this conflict of interest with the federal jobs minister. This is a huge problem with the current Liberal government. You mentioned the We Charity, Jespo, the ArriveCan app, but let's not forget Mary Ng giving contracts to her friend, or Bill Morneau introducing changes to pensions when his company administers many of the pensions in Canada. Yeah, not to mention, James, Morneau Chappelle, the ones that did the consultation report for the Alberta government on the APP. All right, back to James's email. It says, I have friends and family in the civil service. Let's give them a shout out for all the great work they do. Second, they are highly scrutinized for any potential conflict of interest, and they're very careful about accepting anything. When my company meets with government agencies, we can't even buy them coffee. We can definitely not bring them lunch because they could face discipline, maybe even termination. It makes me sick that their elected bosses hold them to high standards that they don't follow for themselves. That from James, who sent his email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. The Flamethrower, proudly presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Coming up on next week's shows, Charles Adler kicks us off on Monday. Plus, we'll check in with our friends, the Eye on Alberta Business from the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. And don't forget, May 8th, we get into BC's drug policy. They're walking it back. Is it the right move? In the meantime, thanks for liking and sharing our content. Keep it on the wheels this weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi.